This week on the show, photographer Joel Belmont of the Dynamic Photography Workshops. I'm photographer Brian Fisher.
And I'm model Roxanne Callie.
And this is TWiP GLAM.
Welcome back to TWiP GLAM, This Week in Photos Glamour podcast.
Welcome back.
Thank you. It's been a little while. How have you been?
Pretty good. This is our second episode in our workshop series. The brain is soft some days. We are bringing you from our last workshop series item was Select Models, who does very affordable but fun,
more local kind
of events. We're going to take you to the other end of the spectrum.
Completely.
Joel Belmont is known for running some of the very best workshops in the Southwest. I intentionally dug around, and we know Joel. We know he's great, but I admit it. We do a little background check on the guest to make sure that you don't want to this is Bob, and then you go Bob is known for throwing models off volcanoes.
That would make for interesting
photos.
Up
on people, and if you go looking for Joel Belmont's events, they are consistently highly, highly rated, and they are not cheapies by any means.
Nope.
Which means you set a very high bar. These people have paid a reasonable amount of money for an adventure, and they seem staggeringly happy.
Yeah.
So joining us today is Joel. Hey, Joel, how are you doing?
Hi.
Good, Brian. How you guys doing?
Hey, good. Thanks.
We are happy to have you on the new show. We had you on the classic show back in the day, and you were a standout then, so you have a high bar to achieve today.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having me back.
You've been very busy by the look of things. I see you have another Lake Powell event coming up before too long in the new year, and then you're doing some other stuff later in the year, which we're not familiar with, and I'm going to let you explain. What does your year look like next year?
Well, I'm actually getting ready to head to Lake Powell now. In 2 days, I'm launching from Bullfrog Marina in Utah on Saturday, and I've scaled back some of the Lake Powell trips a little bit. At the peak, I was doing 4 weeks back to back to back to back with 12 photographers each time. We'd have 6 models, so it was a 1-to-2 ratio. And we'd have, by the time we had a boat captain and a private chef and assistants, you'd be looking at 22, 24 people, which is a lot of people to put up on location in the middle of nowhere. There's no, Walmart around the corner. You basically have what you have, including, showers, toilets, infrastructure, everything to be happy for a week.
I'm going to just throw in a couple of pictures for the audience in post-production. Sure. This is what it looks like to be on one of Joel's events. Houseboat, tent, good people, good fun. It is the most gorgeous country that you go to. Didn't the lake kind of dry up on you guys?
No, it varies from year to year. Right now, it's actually experiencing one of the highest years in recent records.
Wow,
the
wonderful.
Level's around 3629, and I believe full pool's 3700. They go by elevation.
I just remember some news from a few years back where they were like, say goodbye to Lake Powell.
No.
It really depends on the snowpack in Colorado, which is what controls how much they send down to Lake Mead and some of the other reservoirs.
Yeah.
Cool. So,
go ahead. I was going to say, you mentioned, just kind of the experience out there. 2 of the things that I love are that it isolates people so that they can just focus on being immersed in photography and learning and the creative experience for a week, because you basically don't have much cell phone reception out there. And we actually kind of put it into our, applications that we don't want you to be on your cell phones. We want you to just disconnect, because as you know, we're all so connected. We're always on Facebook, and we're always checking email, and we're always answering texts and blah, blah, blah. And it makes it really hard to have a consistent, creative intensive when you're always getting distracted. So that's one of the things I really love about being in the middle of nowhere, is that everybody's, in a sense, isolated, but it also ties everybody together kind of like a little family, and we all, learn from each other. But I also love just, sitting around a campfire with 5, 10, 12, 15 creative people that are all on the same wavelength, looking at a beautiful starry sky and sharing ideas and waking up to sunrises. And yeah, it's an amazing experience.
Well, we need to find a sponsor for the show that'll send us.
Yeah.
How can we work that out?
Sure, we can work something out.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Yeah, let's get a sponsor tomorrow that does that.
That's
Then we could go on the trip.
We might have to wait.
Gotta get to Bullfrog by Saturday.
We might have to wait until next year's adventure.
All right.
I'm just saying.
And back to your original question about what's on the radar. So I do have this trip coming up right now, and I was talking about the scale of them, how large we'd made them. I've kind of preferred to scale them back a little bit. So, well, back a lot. So now I'm taking 2 photographers, 2 models. So it's a 1-to-1 ratio. We've had a chef prepare all the meals, and it's myself. So it's really a very small group. We take a much smaller 26-foot boat that's a lot faster. We cover a much greater distance. In the North Lake Powell workshop that we usually do, we cover, 5 to 10 miles of lake, which has side canyons all along the way. And now on this one, we're actually going all the way from Bullfrog down past the Escalante arm, past the San Juan arm of Lake Powell, all the way down to Page and back up again, which is about, 2/3 to 3/4 of the lake. And it's, the lake has over 1,900 miles of shoreline. So if you do the math, it's a pretty significant area.
Yeah.
Nice.
But I'm really loving these small trips. That's how I started out doing the workshops, with just small groups of 3 or 4 photographers. And it just builds an even tighter knit sense of family.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my events grew to, the biggest one was 250 people, and it was like herding cats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I went home and said, I'm never having another event again. And of course, exactly 3 months later, I was advertising next year's event. But I pulled it way, way back, and I was happier.
Good.
Yeah. It's just, the more you add, you just add more logistics and more headaches, and you're trying to please more people that have different, preferences, and yeah, it's challenging. But I'm doing the one this week. I'm doing one again in May of next year, May 19th to 27th. I'm offering the same workshop again. It's limited to only 2 photographers. It only has 1 spot currently left on it. And that's the only thing I have on the radar for Lake Powell next year. But the one that you mentioned, I'm doing what's called the Metamorphic Nude workshop in Western Colorado next fall, which will be at the end of September and early October. And that's a cool trip in itself, too. I spent several years kind of researching and driving around and location scouting Western Colorado. And so we go through a really cool canyon. It's called Tibet Canyon. The first day we go down into a canyon called Escalante, which is not the same as Escalante in Utah. It's shares some of the same Navajo sandstone as well, and very interesting areas, like an old mining cabin from the 1800s that is all carved out of stone. And then we go up into the mountains above Ouray, and we time it to go along with the peak fall colors with the aspen trees changing, so that again, I try to always have something for everybody, that it is a nude workshop, and we do focus on content and pushing boundaries and elevating your creativity, but also, nothing wrong with being able to make some really awesome landscape pictures of aspen trees that are gold and red reflecting in a lake with a blue sky above as well.
It's not terrible.
So I think I don't have to give the standard announcement, but I will anyway.
There are nudity in
There's
these
some
images.
nudity in this one, and if you would like to see the unedited nudity, you have to go over to thisweekinphoto.com, be signed into the website, and scroll down, and you'll see it embedded in the blog post for this episode. Otherwise, if you are in general YouTube, or if you're getting it download, you're going to see a bit of privacy boxes to keep the demons away, known as censors.
Yeah.
And before too long, we're gonna jump onto this. I was just a pleasure. We set this interview up kind of last minute because you were heading out of town, and so I ended up picking the pictures running through, and it was so hard. I literally have a folder of 60 images that I would love to show people.
Yeah, well, maybe they can go and check out his work on their own.
Do you choose your models for the workshop, or do people kind of crowdsource that?
No, I do it myself by hand, and that's probably one of the things I spend the most time on every year. I have very high standards, not in the sense that I'm looking for like some kind of, high quality, perfect proportioned, 20 years of experience or 10 years or whatever under her belt or his belt. But I try to find models that complement each other so that they don't all look the same, that are different ethnicities, that have different proportions, that are different heights. In recent years, I've worked with male and female. So I basically try to give people a visual balance, that they're not all basically making images of people that all look the same, which is really important to me. And then also trying to find within that models that do have experience and that aren't, as much of a glamour background, more of kind of a blending into nature and more of becoming part of an idea that's bigger than just, here's me.
Well,
which happens with everybody, but sometimes you can.
The reason I ask is, and again, it's obviously personal taste, and everybody has a different photographic style, and models are very much project dependent on what body type and what face type you look for. Well, I love your choices. I mean, really, they are regularly curvy enough to work with the curves in nature. They are not so curvy that you have to, it's as if you took the landscape first and then said, I need somebody that will work with this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's really hard to balance. It's trying to find somebody, because in our workshops, we do teach a lot on visual narratives, and you don't want somebody that polarizes the image. And it's tough because sometimes, we've had people on our workshops, and I've always find ways to work people in ways that work. But, if you have a model that, has an extremely large chest, it's hard to get past that in the image.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to find figure types that don't, aren't exaggerated one way or another, but kind of in a neutral, classically beautiful sense, so that it helps.
You don't want to overpower the landscape, if that makes sense.
Or polarize it. Yeah.
So our first image, and admittedly, this one's a bit of a classic, but it's also one of my favorite images, one of my favorite light painting images ever.
Mm-hmm.
It's from my first Lake Powell workshop.
That's fun.
It is fantastic. Is this, obviously this is the middle of the night. Is this everybody going, well, there's nothing left to do? And somebody went, wait, there's one more thing.
Yeah, that was me. I'm just always trying to expand people's minds as to what's possible. I don't want people to come to a workshop and learn, I don't want them to be little mini versions of me. I want to take what they're interested and passionate about and just elevate that as much as I can.
Sure.
And within that, I try to, have a wide scope of, not only techniques that we teach and, model communication and collaboration, which is huge, but also just different little interesting things that really have a whole, world that could be explored, such as light painting. And with this, it's very simple. I think all this was done with a headlamp, and I threw a red and green gel over it at different times. But I like to expand people's ideas of what's possible and just say, look, take a headlamp, find a dark spot, get a model to pose for you for, 30 seconds and see what you can create. Because that's a beautiful thing about light painting, is it's only as limited as your imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Since you're not limited to the, obviously the way that you normally see things with light, you can create, shapes that don't normally exist, and you can create light scenarios that don't normally exist. And I try not to just have it be kind of a cheeky, cliche thing of light painting for light painting's sake. I try to have them interact with, these, she's acknowledging the green light that's above her, and she's turning away from this hot sense to a cooler sense. And I try to have it make sense within the image, so it's not,
Mm-hmm.
Nice. I have only one piece of light painting advice. I had a student that was going to show how great he was and do some light painting for a project. And I'm watching him, and he's doing the same shot over and over and over again. And I'm like, what you doing? And he's like, I'm just trying to put my name over the top of the model. He's trying to draw. Oh my
goodness.
But he's trying to do it in mirror, and he can't pull off all the letters in mirror. And I'm
no.
Dude, you got Photoshop. Just write it normally and then turn it around.
Yeah.
And he's like,
I think also kind of started that one, but Yeah, there's a lot more creativity you can do.
It's total cliche, but yes, if you want to make a figure, just draw it the way you think you need to. It'll be fine.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, some work that I haven't seen until today.
This is amazing. It looks like she's popping out of like a waterfall or something crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is on the cover of Model Society magazine, which I co-edited that issue, and we included a lot of content from some of our workshops. It's interesting, this image, a lot of people look at it and think she's jumping out of water where it's sand. And so I always have, for me, that's one of the interesting things about art is to see people's reactions to it. I feel like when I'm most effectively in my own personal work, working, that it kind of holds a mirror to the viewer and they kind of get out of it, what they bring with their own experience, and it also elevates that a little bit. So, a person that has kind of a morose outlook on life might see something that's really dark and maybe morbid, and somebody that's more spiritually minded might see how it's uplifting. And
I'm feeling more uplifted by it. Was it a little misty, or what's causing that
not
light
misty.
haze
It
behind? Is it fog
sand?
Or?
That's what he says.
No,
Sand.
It is a little bit of sand, but I like to bring a fogging machine.
Oh, that's cool. You're right.
This particular canyon, you're basically looking down the canyon, and the sun sets right between these two narrow places, and it backlights it beautifully. And even in slot canyons, I've tried times, there's the typical thing that people go into slot canyons and throw sand in the air, and I just don't like having sand in my equipment. So
yeah.
So you will appreciate one of my many, many, many projects that I have kind of laying around. I am working on a propane-powered fog machine.
Nice. Yeah.
Which should be suitcase size and put out unbelievable amounts of fog.
That's what I kind of use. If you want to collaborate.
I looking at this, I'm like, maybe I should make two.
Yeah.
Oh.
I love the figures and art. I mean, sorry, the nature figure art. I think it's what I think 2 or 3 shows ago, we had a few of those and really liked it. And this is one of those that is beautiful.
Yeah, I just love the rock. I mean, the girl's nice too, but I love the rocks and all the lines coming together.
Yep. This particular image is made by Craig Blacklock, who co-teaches with me on some of the Lake Powell trips. The cool thing about this is he worked with a very wide angle lens, but it was a tilt shift lens. So he set it up with the final image in mind, shifted the lens down, made the lower half of the image, shifted the lens up, made the upper half of the image, and then stitched them together. So it's a double resolution image, which creates a wider angle of view than you'd normally see, kind of like, stitching files in general, but also increases the resolution in a way that it doesn't like warp anything, but it leaves it intact. So
that's really neat.
In my non-glamour world, I do a bit of gigapan photography, these 1,000 megapixel images. Yeah. And on my list of to-dos is to do some modeling gigapan work where you strategically put the models where they will get a whole image and then shoot some sort of crazy resolution. Another too many projects. Not enough time.
The cool thing about that is you can, if you start with your image, you create your image without the model in it. If you just finish that and then put the model in from the same camera perspective, you can just shoot the model herself through different poses and then drop that in later. Yeah, so with that.
Kind of cheating.
It is cheating.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to do those size files over and over and over again.
Yeah.
You'd be shocked how slow your computer gets when the single TIFF image is 100 gigabytes.
Yeah, I would imagine.
So obviously Fog Machine, again, similar idea, but I liked this one because where the other one is sort of like this angel going to heaven feel about it, this is Wild Party.
Yeah. I was thinking skipping down like the Yellow Brick Road or something.
Is this multiple exposures or 3 models?
Nope, 3 models. And I always have a thing, and I talk about this at the beginning of the workshops that we teach, but I always try to have images with multiple models that make sense, not ones where they're like, hugging and kissing and doing things that you don't normally come across. Not that you necessarily, walk up a canyon and normally see 3 nude women jumping either, but
It happens to me all the time. You just don't go to the right places.
I like to create images where, it plays on, relationships, how some people are stronger and they help people that aren't as strong, or whatever the concept is. And, with this, I just love the elegant nature of the silhouetted forms.
That first girl is amazing.
Yeah.
The one
on the right. Yeah.
She's got quite a form.
Yeah. Actually, she just had her first child, and unfortunately she won't be modeling for me anymore, but she's one of my all-time favorite models.
You never know. She could come back.
That would be wonderful.
That's one of the strange joys, and some of it comes because I'm a dad and I've got girls that are in 20-ish, but I have really enjoyed photographing a model, and then even if I only work with them one day, you kind of have that strange connection to them. And you end up following them on Facebook and chatting, and pretty soon they're kind of your friend, even though you're 20 years or 30 years older, which is weird. And but then you get to watch them kind of, they go from being this, I know it sounds bad that you're objectifying someone, but they're an object that you photographed. And then they kind of become kind of a friend, and then kind of, you watch them almost like a parental figure, watching them kind of move on into their life. And I've got 2 models right now that just had their first kids, and I was on the very short list of people to notify, and I'm thinking, I've only known this person in person for 4 hours.
Yeah,
it's funny how that works.
And somehow I'm a special person, and I'm very flattered.
They look at those pictures every day. That's why.
It's possible.
I think it has to do with there's so few times in life that whether you're a photographer, a painter, or whatever, you spend, just a consecrated amount of time in creative collaboration with someone working to create something that's the sum of the 2 parts that you guys bring to it. That's the world of cell phones and computers and everything, and Facebook, and it's hard to just isolate and do an analog experience where it's just about nature and creativity and wonderful things.
Well, the photographer and model have a very powerful rapport. You're on a level of rapport that few married couples have.
Right, for sure.
And then I think you hit on something that in today's world, we have become very divorced from having rapport with people, because I can be your Facebook buddy forever and we can know so much about one another, but we don't have any rapport because we haven't heard each other's voice. We haven't been in the same room for any amount of time or in any intensive way.
Brian, I've never met you in person. It's really sad.
It is really sad. What can we possibly do to fix that? Wait, I have an idea.
I know. I would have loved to be one of the models when you guys were doing the bigger workshops too. I think that would have been really
maybe
fun.
We need to talk you into adding a workshop someday that is that's
Our focus?
This Week in Photo a badged workshop.
Actually, years ago, I think I contacted you about it, but I think you were full already.
Yeah, I don't know why that. I go through models every year, and it seems like the ones that I contacted in the past keep getting pushed down the list. I need to have like a top of mind.
Yeah.
Well, I think we had talked about trying to do a collaboration, but you were in your mad mode of working day and night.
That happens. But definitely, let's talk about it.
I suspect we could find half a dozen people who'd like to go out to the desert and look
I
at
would
the sun.
imagine so.
I love these little holes.
Those little
interesting
egg
piece
pods.
of geology.
I spend, in addition to all the time, I've been going to Lake Powell for 10 years, and 1,900 miles of shoreline is a lot of shoreline to cover. I've probably been through 85 to 90% of it. The caveat on top of that is the lake level is always changing. Right now, those holes are under 30 feet of water.
No. Little known fact, models are actually a geologic formation like a geode.
But, the cool thing is it opens up new places, and some years it's even lower, and you find underwater caves that you never knew existed, and arches and all sorts of cool things. But
so neat.
I just love looking for little details in the landscape. It's such a grand landscape to work with. that I love. In addition to that, trying to find little, nooks and crannies. And it's always tough to have, the typical model in a whole image without it just, covering up the hole and not being that interesting. And
I got to tell you, in searching for these, I love this super wides that were, I presume, cropped for your website use, but I really like them. I feel like I want this picture printed about 10 feet across.
Right? Like above your bed or something as like as
that
art.
might get a little strange. I was thinking down the hallway.
Oh, okay.
My parents will get over it.
Yeah, I have a general philosophy about printing large. Most of the last 20 years, I've worked in large format film, 4x5 negatives, for the primary purpose of being able to print large. More recently, I've been with the workshops working digitally just for more, quicker feedback and not being able to develop film on a houseboat and so on and so forth. But for me, larger images are more of kind of a window into an experience. Whereas kind of a small thing on a wall is kind of a small thing on a wall. And so I love creating art where you're almost, you're in front of it and you're almost transported to that place. It becomes less of an object and more of a experiential thing.
This feels absolutely like an experience.
Yes.
That would be incredible to swim like that in that water.
Here in the studio, I have to tell you, Roxanne, you haven't seen this picture. Well, you have, sort of. The version that we have displayed on the monitor for Roxanne to see does not have the incredible punch and color that the original does.
Oh.
That yellow will just knock your socks off. So you actually have to watch the episode online this time. Because they all know.
Yeah.
He knows.
Yeah, but I don't.
You don't.
I feel so left out.
It is liquid gold. It is just absolutely gorgeous.
It's a beautiful image, and she has such a great angle. I mean, you probably do, but she has a very nice shape to her as well.
She does.
It's tough because this only happens right at sunset when the light starts bouncing around on the walls and creates this golden hue. But at the same time, the air temperatures drop and models, 68, 69 degree water, you're good for a couple minutes, but after a while you want to get warm again.
Yeah, I understand
that.
I
was telling one of our other guests, Craig Colvin, who's another great photographer.
He's been to our workshops. He's a great guy.
Oh, yeah.
Another one of my side projects is I'm building some underwater strobes. And this would be great to do some of this work, but illuminate the lake in a big way.
Yeah. That would be so you don't have to wait for sunset.
He's definitely pushing a lot of creative boundaries with what he's doing.
Yeah, we like him a lot. Maybe we can just do one big mega group. We'll get all of the guests and skip all this. Or we could bring fans too, but it would be really great to get all of the guests together someday.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Oh, explain. I want the idea behind it. Go ahead.
I like that I look at this, and of course, immediately the girl with the arms out snaps right to me. I don't see the second girl for a minute. She's sort of it's almost like she's the other stone in the picture. Mm-hmm. I like it.
So, Roxanne, you'd mentioned you want to know what it means. What is it? What do you get out of it?
I don't know. Sorrow. I get suffering. It seems like the girl, that model that's laying on the ground, is sad in some way. And maybe that's a reflection of me.
No? Well,
I hope
not. It's very similar to what, and again, that's the beauty of it, is everybody gets their own interpretation out of it. But it is similar along the lines of what I was going for. I was going for, you have this impressive rock expanse that's just being basically suspended. And I want to have the model standing up, basically trying to hold that above and off of the model below.
Oh, that makes a lot more sense. It looks kind of like a tree branch in my picture here.
I realize I actually kind of thought of a more religious theme cross going there.
Yeah, a little bit.
Kind of a suffrage.
Just the way her arms kind of fit the rock crevice.
Again, it's the beauty of it is any image that is sufficiently profound
you get 100 different responses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of sand.
Yeah. She got very sandy this day.
She did. It's a good thing there's a lake.
Yes.
Anastasia is another one of my favorite models. She also does some workshops over in Italy, I believe.
I can see. Oh, wait. I think I tried to get her on one of the shows once. I don't know whatever happened to that.
Anastasia Cole. She's I love working with her because she's also, in addition to being a great model, she's also an artist in her own right, and she sees things as an artist sees, which always makes collaboration that much more enjoyable.
Absolutely.
And you kind of push things higher. This is another image by Craig Blacklock, and that is the analog version without the smoke. That's, with the sand being lit up. But I love it. It almost creates wings under her. In a sense.
It does, almost like a piece of cloth.
Yeah, and I also love images where you have a balance of stagnant but also movement that contrast against each other.
Which, when you are in a million-year-old rock formation, a little movement is not a bad idea.
It is.
Yeah.
It's very neat.
Erosion works very slowly.
And this, which might be my favorite, this is very sort of Pirates of the Caribbean.
I don't know. I feel anarchy a little bit.
There's a little bit of that.
I think it's because of the angle of the, it's like a circle almost with.
I see that. I see the
cool.
X's. Of course, the X's are very visually powerful.
And it just seems like she's like, this is mine.
Yeah, but then you could also take and make it, you could put mermaid tails on those girls.
Yeah, you could. You could make it fairy tale-ish.
Very.
Yeah.
But dark.
But what would it mean, Brian? Because then you have mermaids in the smoke.
Sirens.
They would be sirens.
Yeah, see, I helped you.
I'm sure we would come up with something because they couldn't be very nice mermaids. This would be where
this is where they're fighting.
Yes.
Don't end up here.
Luring pirates into the water to drown.
Yeah, we would need some floating dead bodies in the water, but we can work that out.
Definitely. Swords strapped to their backs.
Yes.
Of women, I mean.
Yeah, that's another thing I love about creating smoke is the layer of depth that you can create. It also works very practically. This happened to be a location that is a very busy location. I mean, way back behind is a mountain of small rocks. It's visually distracting, and there's a lot of trees that's visually distracting, and it helps to basically isolate and almost create a temporary backdrop for the models in the foreground.
I have to sorry to interrupt. I have to give a shout out to these models because that is super uncomfortable.
I'll bet.
You're crawling up on a tree with all kinds of different bark and bugs and on your bare ass.
But you know what? If I was the model up there, I would be like, man, that girl's got it good down there. She doesn't have to be on this bark.
Water.
What I'd have to do is look down and go, you're really brave with those leeches.
Yeah. Actually, all of them have their own little challenges to get through.
Yes, they do.
And to make it look as comfortable and elegant as possible. The girl's doing this kind of pose where it looks like she's enjoying herself and she's really enjoying the pose and everything.
I love being on bark.
And to be honest, it's super uncomfortable and so worth it. It is all about the shot.
That is why Roxanne is a great model. You can make her suffer. I was just about
to say that's the mark of a true model is when you can take something that's super uncomfortable and make it look as beautiful and comfortable and natural as possible when it's really not.
Yeah. People think it's easy. It is not easy.
Not easy.
There's a day when Roxanne is going to get vengeance for all the things I put her through.
You haven't put me through that much.
I have proof. Yeah. I've got pictures of rocks and sharp things.
You're right, you do. And water coming up over my head waves.
There's a great picture that I think we may have had on here before.
We have.
I was taking a picture of Roxanne, and we could all see this big crashing wave coming towards these three models, and not one of the photographers made a peep.
Not at all. And we were all in a great pose together, and then all of a sudden we're soaked. And there's that hit, the face of when the water hit us. We're like, ah!
Whenever I feel depressed, I put up this picture of Roxanne screaming.
Oh, man.
It's funny.
It was funny. It was all in good fun, though.
It was in good fun. That was a great
that's
day.
Part of it.
We had so much fun.
Part of a shoot is getting
one
wet
of my
and dirty.
big events where we put people together. Buttocks.
Oh, is this my end shot?
I have to check. Yes, that's the last shot.
Brian always does booties for me at the end.
And quite rightly so.
Why have one when you can have two?
Yeah,
that's true.
I agree. Or 3 or 4.
It almost looks like a mirror shot. I like that the angle of the bodies works with the angle of the rocks, and the rock is somewhat crystalline, so it's cracked in very, very straight lines.
It looks like they could almost be parallel if you had put the other girl down lower. Is that? I wonder if that's.
Yeah.
Well, there is. See,
That's
from the edge you can get one and then
Yeah.
two. It looks like it to me, but I like it. This is like almost like a V. Well,
Yeah.
upside down, but a mountain.
It's a fine image. And again, it's this super, super wide aspect ratio. And I think I really, really like it. You can expect to be in super wide aspect here very soon.
Oh, wait, aspect?
Yes, aspect.
Tucci.
I like to be cheeky here on the podcast now and then.
Oh, cheeky.
Yes.
Yeah. As long as you're not bumming me out.
Oh,
Too far?
No, it's never too far.
Great when you can come to work and laugh a lot.
So, rumor has it you have just finished producing a new video. Should we stick it in right about here?
Here? No, here.
No, here.
Here.
The spot
okay.
here.
Oh, fine. Okay.
All right. Play the video. Well, that's fantastic. And that is a tremendous opportunity for all of us that can't make it. Firstly, I want to say the production value is great. That video is really well done, and you won't be making one of those every year. That's
Probably not. I think the budget's probably pretty
not.
high on those.
That was amazing.
Something that we've been working on for 3 years now. It's the biggest project I've undertaken in this nature, but our goal is really to take an experience that only currently, people that are more financially well off can afford, that, ranges from $4,500 to up to $9,000 for being on location for up to 9 days, and bring it into a way that, almost anybody could afford for a couple $100, and to still not just have, like lynda.com or something where they're going through, just a few videos, but really try to recreate the creative intensive where it takes the person through the same curriculum that the people on location go through, the same inspirational things, the same presentations that we go through, the same on location lessons, which are, just amazing to see some of the locations and the models that are there. But how to take that and adapt that into their own photography. And we've tried to take this concept of putting something in a box so that it's not, again, just a set of videos, but it's as much of the experiences we can recreate as possible.
I know that it's not meant to be a sales tool or a lead into the big workshop, but I have to tell you, if I go through this thing and it looks fantastic, I got a funny feeling that I'm going to be reprioritizing a few things in the next year, going, I'm going on the next trip.
Sometimes, and again, we were talking earlier, and I mentioned we're only in this life once, and so for me, like, it doesn't mean I go and like break the bank every opportunity I get, but when something comes along that's really amazing, I invest in it. My wife and I don't know if you had a chance to see on Netflix, Tony Robbins' documentary called I'm Not Your Guru.
No, I haven't.
Highly recommend it. It's a documentary of his highest level event, which costs $5,000 per person. We watched the documentary. I started reading some of his books and listening to his audiobooks. And now we're going down in Florida for his highest level event. And it's the same thing. I've gotten just so much value from it. And that's the thing that I try to do with the workshops, is just over deliver as much value as I possibly can pack into that short a time frame. And the people that come, they come again and again, and they want to, gets them on a creative high and opens up their door of what's possible. And who wouldn't want that?
Absolutely. Love it. Any other projects on the horizon?
We will be, and don't share this with anyone, I haven't made it public yet.
Okay.
We will be launching a new workshop on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington State.
Oh. Get the car.
Oh, yeah.
Which is if you haven't seen it, it's one of the most dramatic, beautiful, stunning stretches of shoreline in probably the world.
Does it help that I have a big sailboat in Anacortes?
Wouldn't hurt. Hurt.
Let me see what I can come up with. My brother's sailboat.
Yeah. Where's the best place to find your work? Obviously, this video is embedded in the feed, but where else can we find your things?
DynamicPhotoWorkshops.com is our main website, where you can register for our events and learn more about them. We also have videos up on Vimeo and YouTube if you just look up Dynamic Photography Workshops. My own personal work is intimationsofspirit.com. That is a work in progress. I just shifted websites around and I'm rebuilding it, but it's about halfway done. But that's my own personal.
We'll get a link over. Models that want to contact you and put their name in the hat for workshops. Yeah,
for sure. And I love hearing from new people, and I always try to balance bringing returning models with new people that haven't gotten to experience it. Probably Model Mayhem is the easiest place for me to keep track of all the conversations in one place. 4010 is my number, or just look up Joel Belmont.
I will make sure that's in the links in the show notes.
And definitely, send me a message. And Roxanne, we should talk as well.
I think we should.
So, as always, any listeners that feel like, hey, you need to go talk to whoever, or if you're like, my work is awesome and I want to have a picture at the end of the show, just send us a link. You can go to the bottom of the blog post for any of the shows on thisweekinphoto.com, fill out the little form, give us a link where we can see your stuff. We would love to see your stuff. Make sure to include your email address. I had 2 of them this week I could not reply to. I'm like, there's no email address. I mean, it's nice. No. It's great. They said great things. One last thing, rounding it out, I want to thank everybody who heeded our call to action to write some reviews on YouTube, on iTunes. YouTube's good too. They finally started populating. We still have some that we don't know where they went to, and if yours didn't show up, write it again if you feel like it. But it did populate, so we will stop banging on about that. Just thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, thank you again to our guests and This Week in Photo for making this podcast possible.
Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, or see the unedited episode, especially this episode, because Lord knows there's a lot of nudity in this one.
Yeah.
And that's over at thisweekinphoto.com. Get logged into the site. You don't have to pay anything. But once you're logged in, the unedited version will show up on the blog post about halfway down the page, and you can check that out. Probably no gallery images for this because I don't think we have anything.
Yeah, that's okay.
But all beautiful work. So much fun.
And Joel, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
It's been great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Roxanne and Brian. It's great having me back. I appreciate it.
No problem. We'll see you next time on TWiP GLAM.
See you later, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.